Hey there, welcome back to our Revolution Games Academy. Now that we have seen how to implement 3D spatial audio, let's move on to adding sound effects for player actions, like jumping and shooting. Before we begin, make sure your scene is set up properly with the player, enemy, and ground objects, all equipped with the necessary physics and colliders. If you want to refer how to set up a 2D game, please check out our 2D game development tutorials. All right, to begin, first you'll need to import your sound files like the jump and shoot sounds. Make sure they are royalty-free, just like the background music which we've added earlier. To do this, simply drag your audio files into the Assets folder in Unity, or use the Import New Asset option. Make sure the audio files are in a supported format such as .wav or .mp3 so Unity can work with them smoothly. Once your audio files are in, the next step is to select your player game object in the hierarchy. This could be a 3D character or a simple 2D object, depending on your game. If the player doesn't already have an audio source component, you'll need to add one. To do this, go to the Inspector window, click Add Component at the bottom, then search for and select the audio source component. In the audio source component, make sure to uncheck the Play on Awake box. This stops the sound from playing automatically when the game starts. You can also adjust the volume of the sound using the volume slider in the audio source component to get the right level for your sound effects. Next, it's a good idea to create a sound manager. This step is optional, but helps keep your audio organized. Create an empty game object in your scene and call it Sound Manager. Now let's write the script to manage the sounds. In this script, you will define public variables for your jump and shoot sounds. You also need a reference to the audio source component that will play the sound. So, in your script, you'll create two public audio clip variables, one for the jump sound and one for the shoot sound, and a private audio source variable to store the audio source reference. Next, in the start method of the script, you'll get a reference to the audio source component so you can play the sounds when needed. This is done by using getComponentOfAudioSource to link the audio source component to your script. Now that you have your audio source reference, you need to create methods to trigger the sounds. For instance, you will write a method called playJumpSound that plays the jump sound using the playOneShot function. PlayOneShot is a method of the audio source component in Unity that plays an audio clip without interrupting other sounds that might be currently playing. Similarly, you'll create a method called playShootSound that plays the shooting sound. These methods will be called later when the player performs the corresponding actions. Once the script is written, attach it to the player game object. Then, in the Unity Inspector, you will assign the jump and shoot sound files to the public audio clip variables that you defined in your script. This is done by simply dragging the appropriate sound files into the corresponding slots in the inspector. Now let's get these sound effects triggered by the player's actions. You can use Unity's input system to detect when the player presses certain keys. For example, you might use the spacebar for jumping and the Fire 1 button for shooting. In the update method of your script, you will check for these key presses using input.getKeyDown of keycode.space to detect the jump and input.getButtonDown of Fire 1 to detect the shooting action. When the player presses these keys, your playJumpSound and playShootSound methods will be called playing the corresponding sound effects. If you want to confirm or change the key mappings for these actions, you can do so in Unity's Input Manager. To open it, go to Edit, Project Settings, Input Manager. In the Input Manager, you will find predefined input actions like Jump and Fire 1, and you can check or modify their key mapping. For example, Fire 1 is often mapped to the left mouse button or left control key, and the jump action is typically mapped to the space bar. Another important step is to make sure the player can hear the sounds in the game. To do this, you need to add an audio listener component to your player game object. The audio listener is like the player's ears and processes all the sounds in the scene. Make sure it's attached to the player game object to capture the sounds from the player's perspective. Make sure to remove the audio listener component from the camera if you assign it to the player, as Unity supports only one active audio listener in the scene at a time. Finally, hit play in the Unity editor and test everything. Press the space bar to make sure the jump sound plays, and press the Fire 1 button, such as left control or mouse click, to test the shooting sound. You can always adjust the volume, pitch, and other properties of the audio source component to fine-tune the sound effects and get the right feel for your game. And there you go. With these steps, you've successfully added sound effects for player actions like jumping and shooting. Now your game world will feel more immersive and responsive, enhancing the overall player experience. If you found this guide helpful, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more Unity tutorials. In the next video, we'll be creating dynamic audio trigger zones. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.